For problem number 80, obviously we have a fraction here, and our step 1 is find our f of x plus h. Now, again, just to remind you that when we have function notation, whatever's inside the parentheses is what we call our input, or our domain value, or what we put in. And in this case, we don't have to do much to it, but we have to put 1 over that thing, whatever's the input, plus 3. Well, that input here is x plus h. Did I need to put parentheses around it? No, because it's not being multiplied by anything, and it's not being squared. If we wanted to put parentheses around it, we could. If we did that, we didn't need to do that. Then we could just do x plus h plus 3. So that's our f of x plus h. And then, second step, take our f of x plus h and subtract f of x. So that's our f of x plus h right there. And subtracting our f of x is given to us, 1 over x plus 3. So this is what we're supposed to simplify. And, we could simplify it now, or we could just go ahead and take that whole thing and divide by h. So let's go ahead and do that. It's going to give us one very complicated fraction. But I kind of like having it like this. And the reason why I like having it like that is because, number one, I can do all my steps at once. So what I mean here is that here we have a complex, it's called a complex fraction. Complex fraction would be a fraction that has fractions in it. So here we have two fractions in the numerator, and then we have this h down here. In a complex fraction, here's my suggestion. Find your lowest common denominator, and we can hopefully clearly see the lowest common denominator is our x plus h plus 3 multiplied by x plus 3. If you can identify that as your lowest common denominator, then all you have to do is multiply top and bottom x plus h plus 3 times x plus 3. You can multiply top and bottom by that lowest common denominator. And why would we want to do that? Well, I'll show you. We want to do that because when we multiply this whole expression here by the first fraction, we end up getting, and then we have to multiply it also by the second fraction. So let me write all of that out. So I'm going to have x plus h plus 3 times x plus 3, and that being multiplied by the first fraction, we put the x plus h plus 3 down there. And then we have this also, that's times 1, but we don't even have to write the times 1, but I'll do that for effect. And then minus this x plus h plus 3 times x plus 3 times 1. So we multiply the numerators, and you could think about it, this is over 1. Multiply the numerators by 1, and then the denominator, this whole thing here, this expression multiplied by 1 over x plus 3, there's an x plus 3 in the denominator. Now, that's all over, keep in mind, that's all over h times x plus h plus 3 times x plus 3. Now, don't you dare multiply that out, because it's going to come in handy that it's all factored. You do not want to, you're going to do a lot of work here if you multiply that out and have to factor it again. So, anyway, once we get to this step, we are going to go ahead and cancel the like factors. That's why we do the original step of multiplying both top and bottom by this lowest common denominator, because these denominators are going to cancel out. Once we have that, now this whole numerator just becomes x plus 3, this one right here, minus, don't forget to leave the parentheses in there for now, x plus h plus 3. All over, and again, don't you dare multiply these factors out, because something's going to cancel here in a minute. And then if we get rid of the parentheses here, we can distribute that minus sign, minus x, minus h, minus 3 up on top. We still have our h times x plus h plus 3 times x plus 3. Now notice, again, the terms that don't have an h in them, there's an x there and there's a negative x there, those cancel. There's a 3 and a negative 3, those cancel. So all we're left with in the numerator is negative h. Well, if we're left with negative h, then we know that, well, I'll write it again just to make sure we're good. Negative 1 times h, or negative h, and we have x plus h plus 3 and x plus 3. So this is just like, so let me write that over here. Negative h is the same as negative 1 times h. So I want you to view this as, oh, we can just cancel the h's. And when you cancel that h up on top, you're left with just negative 1. And so the answer is negative 1 over x plus h plus 3 times x plus 3. You can multiply that on the bottom if you want, but that's not going to help you any. Might as well just leave it alone. But we left it factored so that we could cancel that key factor of h. You will always be able to cancel an h when you do these kinds of problems.